As the nation prepares for Independence Day, a Northeast Ohio family will observe the occasion as they have for decades.
July 4th marks 80 years since a young Marine named Lewis McIntosh died while fighting in World War II. Our sister station, WKYC, shares the story of one family's commitment to honor their loved one.
Did you guys see the note that Uncle Lewis sent to his mom?
Yeah, I saw that one.
It is the sweetest thing.
This is how his nieces and nephews have come to know Uncle Lewis.
All of his Marine buddies signed and put a little saying.
Through photos and stories told over and over.
He enjoyed life, I think, you know.
One of 5 children from a South Carolina family, Lewis Oscar McIntosh loved them all, especially little sister Juanita.
I guess he was quite the character. She used to tell stories about it all the time as they grew up, and they were very close.
Now, Juanita's children have gathered in Sister Gloria Duggar's home to share stories of Uncle Lewis as an 18-year-old Marine in World War II.
He was an island hopper. They would go from island to island, clearing the islands and getting ready to get to an island that they can set up an Air Force base that can reach Japan.
The Battle of Saipan started in June of '44, lasting nearly a month. A celebrated American victory, but it came at a heavy cost. 3,500 Marines died.
They thought he had gone after ammunition, and they don't know what happened.
During this time, the U.S. banned the return of overseas war dead. Money went to fighting, and soldiers were buried in temporary military cemeteries throughout Europe and the Pacific theaters. Without a body or ID tags, families like that of Lewis McIntosh were left to wonder.
She never knew if maybe he was in a prison camp, you know, or if he'd been tortured, or, you know, what really happened to him.
Juanita married, settling in Northeast Ohio. As she raised her family, Lewis was never far from her mind. In her late 80s, she submitted DNA, still hoping for answers. Juanita died in August of 2021 at the age of 92. The family all but forgot about the DNA until a phone call this spring out of the blue.
And he says, "We have information about your Uncle Lewis, and I'd like to talk to you."
On the other end,
Hi.
Donovan Mansfield, head of the repatriation program for the United States Marine Corps.
We have individuals all over the world that are in sites working off historical data, trying to find remains that have not been recovered yet.
These programs exist for every branch of the military. Mansfield and his team have cases from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and even the Cold War. As science advances, more remains are being identified, and in an act of abiding love, Juanita's DNA is bringing her brother home.
My mom would have been thrilled. I mean, she could finally say, okay, I know where my brother, what happened to him.
No one saw how he died, so it's just listed here as homicide.
On June 4th, an ID brief took place at Gloria Duggar's home. The family would finally get some answers.
It is a massive, massive effort that leads to where we're sitting today.
And make final arrangements to honor their uncle. It is decided he will be buried in Arlington Cemetery with full military honors, provided and paid for by the United States government, fulfilling a commitment to the nation's servicemen and women.
It doesn't matter what branch you service at, no one's left behind. And we do mean that literally, even going back to our Marines that served in World War II, that we're doing everything in our power to bring you home to your loved ones, and that you're never forgotten.
The day is about Private McIntosh and finally bringing him home. But bittersweet thoughts of Juanita are never far away.
And she would have been the happiest person in the world to have been, you know, gotten that phone call. She's in heaven with him now, so that's okay.
Maureen Kyle, 3 News.
Brian Duggar, I remember him talking to me about this when we just did a very similar story when Sergeant Jack Coy from Oregon's remains were identified using DNA, and he was brought home over the Memorial Day weekend and laid to rest.
So you're hearing the last name Duggar in that piece. Maybe you were thinking, why are we covering this story today?
Yeah, and it's because Brian Duggar, he was sitting there telling me as this was going on with Jack Coy that it was actually happening in his own family. The soldier was lead investigator Brian Duggar's great uncle. So Brian, when you told me about this, how did you actually learn about it and what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty shocking. You know, my mom had called me at work, and she never calls me at work, so I knew something was up, but I wasn't able to pick up. She left a voicemail, and I looked at the voicemail transcription, and it said something along the lines of, they found Uncle Lewis, which was shocking because Uncle Lewis has been gone for 80 years, and the family stories were, you know, he jumped out of a foxhole, he went up the hill, he was blown up, we're never gonna find his body.
What does this mean as far, I mean, this sense of closure? We tell stories all the time about families getting closure. Is that big? Is that an important part for your family?
It really is. It's a little bittersweet because my grandmother, she was 15 when her big brother went off to war, and she lived her entire life. She died when she was 92 back in 2021. She lived her entire life without ever truly knowing what happened to him and always being a little sad that she was never able to bring him home. But in reality, she was, because it was her DNA that led to his identification and for him coming home.
Yeah, and we've been seeing more stories like this coming forward with this technology DNA. And I mean, talk about the ultimate cold case. You know that technology very well. Is there anything else that you learned about how he was identified?
Yeah, they used mitochondrial DNA in this case, which has come a long way in the last couple years, and it really has advanced. And as you heard in that story, you know, when soldiers died in World War II, they weren't able to stop the fighting and bring them home. So often they were put in these makeshift graveyards, and he was found with the remains of other soldiers, and I believe it was a jawbone that they were able to extract the DNA from and match it to my grandmother.
Will you be making the trip to Arlington?
I am going to make the trip to Arlington. I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I mean, he's going to get the burial he deserves and the burial we never expected to see.
All the best to your mom and your family, and hopefully you can bring us an update so we can see kind of the conclusion to all of this.
I absolutely will.
Thanks, Brian.